Welcome, everybody. As you all know, my name is April, and my spirits and I together, we are called Austrae Astoundance. Welcome to the Conspiritesees podcast. This is like one of those recordings that a lot of people have been waiting for the United States election. And I have checked in with my spirits from time to time, asking them if anything has changed. And the answer to that question, with certain shifts and the way the astrology appears and has been looking, um, checking in with the currents that are going on out there in terms of the spiritual warfare. And my spirits insisted over and over again, there are shadows to this because there is basically a spiritual warfare going on. And my spirit said over and over again, April, it's the money versus the people. Don't forget that. You follow the money and you got your answers. So pay attention to this, and factor that into your thinking. I mean, we have a transit that I've been speaking about, which I was quite surprised a lot of people weren't speaking about it as much, is the Jupiter in Gemini transit. I've been singing like a canary about this transit, only because it gives us a shift of perspective, and it's all about introspect. So it's getting us to look at different perspectives in a way, to shift karma, to change the karma. um, it's interesting. It's like two opposing truths that can be right at the same time. The only difference is how you apply the introspection, and which Jupiter is going to push us through that introspect. Okay. But it's even more tricky because Gemini energy is very clever. And this transit, for those that aren't really into astrology, this transit is kind of bleeding right over into 2025. And that's June, I believe it's June 9th of 2025. And it started May 25th of 2024. It's now currently in retrograde as I'm recording, and it will be in retrograde until February 4th of 2025. Now, um, I want to bring this particular transit up around the United States election because of this very thing of Gemini energy. Now, when this all was going on, I had a sense that we may see someone that's running for the election either step down. I had predicted this, like someone could step down and be replaced, or decide that they are going to change their mind and move to a different group or a party. And that's exactly what happened when RFK decided to endorse Trump. And I had predicted this weeks before it happened. And everyone, I think, thought I was out of my mind. And they're like, April, what are you talking about? And I was like, you don't understand. This transit is so important for this election, besides a few other transits I'm going to be talking about here in a few minutes. Okay. But I say this because if we are going retrograde in the Jupiter planet that's in Gemini, Jupiter is the expansion planet. If we need to grow, if we need to expand, we have to be willing to introspect and look at different perspectives. We are being pushed to do so right now. So if you're someone that's stuck in your ways, or you just hate something for the sake of hating, you got to be careful here, because right now we are on the brink of some kind of karma. Now, there's good karma and there's bad karma. Karma is not necessarily a bad thing, but lack thereof of any type of introspect, you're being warned of. You have to really sit and think this through. So in however this plays out, in our personal lives or external world, of course this is the reading on the elections, but this is not about pointing fingers of shame or blame, or it's your fault, or it's this, or this is time to assess the dealings that are going on. Like, really assess it. And Gemini represents information, the media. It represents accuracy, curiosity. And when we go retrograde, we're going back to something, like kind of like recorrecting a test. Like, we're like, oh, okay, why did I miss that? Okay, I understand. Okay, I see. You're reviewing things and seeing where something went wrong, or did you miss something? Did you miss an important piece of information? This transit is also going to be speaking about falsified information. So, falsified information meaning, is is it accurate? Because Gemini is about media, information, communication. It's God's communicator in that fashion, in that way. Um, but it's also trying to bring some things to the light to try to make sure that we understand exactly what we are hearing is true. This is where we're going to see like a big reveal in a book. We're going to see a lot of books coming out right now. We're going to see like people uncovering things, getting real investigative. Like, okay, is that really true? So pay attention to books, media, things like that, especially around this election, and ask yourself, is this true? Is that accurate? And here's the other thing that gets really tricky as well. Gemini being a clever sign, Gemini comes in the twin energy. So it's almost like we may be seeing people suddenly changing their minds about how they feel about something, about, okay, I was once on this side, but now I'm not sure if I want to be on that side anymore. I might go over here. They just, boom, just change their mind all of a sudden because of some information they found out that they weren't. They're like, oh, I never looked at it like that. This isn't a time to be stubborn either. This is a time to really like see things for what they are and all this ugliness. And I say this because I'm going into this other transit. Pluto entered Capricorn in 2008. That's when we saw a big financial crisis for the United States. Right now, Pluto is still in Capricorn. Okay. And it's going to be moving out of Capricorn on November 19th. So this is right past the elections, obviously. This is like Pluto's mood is like the tower moment. For those of you that know tarot, this is like the tower card. It's like, finish him, finish what? I don't know. Like, like when you're playing like the old video games, Mortal Kombat, it's like, finish him. Okay. Finish something. Like Pluto's going to come in and finish something. And Pluto comes in. And Pluto, Capricorn rules the systems, the structures, the businesses, the dynasties. They are the gatekeepers, all the dark side of the real estate markets, big pharma. It's showing all the cracks right now since 2008. And Pluto's going to come in and go, have you learned? Okay, this is like where the mood is like, this is the tower moment. This is like the finish him moment. Okay. So Pluto's last chance right now is to destroy, demolish, and burn to the motherfucking ground any dark side of Capricorn ruled types of establishments, institutions that's broken, corrupt, problematic, and is still going on today. Pluto doesn't have time for that. This is a huge moment of history. You can't make this shit up. It's like, how can you even think that astrology would align up like this? And then to think that the United States election's happening, I believe is it the 2nd or the 5th? Oh my God, I just went blank. Is it the 2nd or 5th for the elections?
It's the 5th.
Okay, I thought it was the 5th because Spirit kept saying
it's
the
the
5th.
5th.
For some reason, I was thinking of I keep hearing the 2nd or twos or the 2nd. Now, I've been hearing the number 2 come up a lot since that Jupiter and Gemini transit, which I'm going to go back to that transit and talk a little bit about that now. I'm jumping around, but Spirit has me do this in the first like 10 minutes in my readings. A lot of you guys know my style, so I'm going back into this space really quick. Now, we're going to be seeing something come up in 2s with this election. Spirit has not dropped it, so be prepared for this possibility. I'm not saying this as a matter of fact. I'm saying be prepared for this possibility. Gemini is the twins. It's 2s, okay? So we may see a tie or we may be seeing a second count, like a recount of votes. Like someone could come in and say, what are you doing? This isn't accurate, or how dare you? And they may challenge the votes, okay? And that is very likely with the Jupiter and Gemini transit going retrograde, meaning we're going backwards. We're going to reassess. We're going to recount. Is the accuracy there? And thank God for that transit, because what if there's a lie there? What if we're being deceived? What if with this Pluto in Capricorn coming in to get into the mood of that, having that tower moment, but they're going to get in and try to destroy it? any type of deception is going to bring it all to the surface. So be prepared for a sudden shock, a sudden change of events, because something may happen where they'll say, oh, gee, it's a tie. Now, what do we do? Now, I've never heard of anything like this. Did this ever happen in history? Maybe you know, where there's an actual tie for the votes.
Well, there was an interesting um it was called a hanging chad when Bush was elected in Florida, and it was a
Really?
huge debacle. And they were having issues because the hole punch, like when you used to hole punch with a vote, with use like the hole punch. Well,
Yeah,
those hole punches weren't cleanly punching out the votes, so they took like a long time to recount the votes in Florida, and it kind of I think it actually swung towards Bush to win that state
that's
back then.
incredible. I didn't even know that, because I was even asking my spirits. I was like, could this really possibly happen? Have we ever had this happen in history? I didn't know. I just know that spirit keeps mentioning twos, like the twin energy. So I keep going back to this Jupiter and Gemini energy, because that's why I kept thinking it was November 2nd. I'm like, no, it's the 5th for the day of voting. But Spirit goes, twos, twos. I'm like, twos? That's right. I got to bring this up in this recording. So here we are. We're talking about it. Pay attention to the number two, um, to ties, things like this. This energy is very, very strong. Also, keep in mind, October 22nd is coming up. Okay. October 22nd is a very powerful day. That's the start of Scorpio season. We're moving into Scorpio season here. And this particular moment is called it's called like via combusta, okay? This is a very powerful aspect that's happening between the sun and Pluto. And this is happening the same day as Scorpio season begins. And it's the midpoint section of the zodiac. So this is basically like, I don't know, the fiery road, like the burning path. It's like it goes from 15 degrees Libra to 15 degrees Scorpio. And this is a big, powerful moment. Um, it's in the middle, basically, it's like a halfway point of where the square is actually happening. So this is like really strange. And Spirit's like, two, bring up the twos. So besides the twin energy and besides the number two, like we could be seeing a tie, things like that. This is all very possible. So, and I'm not saying as a matter of fact, just do with the messages what you will, but this is as I carefully assessed over the weeks and months. Um, I just wanted to make sure that this is recorded and no one missed that very strong point, okay, of what Spirit wanted to talk about with that. So, here's something I want to add to this. Now, for those of you that listened to my predictions for 2024, um, I had mentioned that we may be seeing someone in the limelight, or someone like maybe it's a politician or something like this, that falls under the following earth signs. So it could be a Taurus, could be a Virgo, could be a Capricorn. And I had some clients actually reach out to me in the middle of the year and say, April, do you think that um, what you were predicting and talking about that earth sign could have been DeSantis? Because DeSantis, remember at the beginning, he decided he wasn't going to run. He's a
Yeah, he
Virgo.
stepped out early. Yeah, he did.
Yeah,
But
he stepped out. It was like January or something like this, right? It was
I
January.
also have to bring up something that I just found out that's very interesting. I was looking into Trump's sons, and both of his sons are Capricorns. Both Eric and Don Jr. are Capricorns. Could that
Wow.
hold any power or any interest in that?
I never thought about that, but here's the thing. Every time I was reading in the last couple weeks of this, it's definitely, I don't know how young his sons are, but this would be a king suit. So king suit in traditional tarot would be somebody a little bit older, like 40, maybe like 43, 44, 45 and up.
Don Jr. is 46. Eric Trump is 40.
That's so interesting.
There's something there, I
There
think.
is something that, yeah, so I feel like, and what another thing that I noticed is that this individual, I remember something came up because RFK is also, he's a Capricorn. DeSantis is a Virgo. Those two are earth signs right there. Okay. Also, Taurus is an earth sign, but since I'm speaking about the two people in the political limelight here, we had DeSantis that stepped down, I think, sometime in January. And I think right around that time, my goodness, there was a lot going on with the transit at that time. So it kind of didn't shock me that he did that. But at the same time, I still felt there was an essence or energy of some danger or a really tough situation around an earth sign male that we'll be hearing about. I pray that it's something fatal, but I feel like something could just go really wrong. Now, am I saying that's RFK? I'm not. Am I saying it's DeSantis? I'm not. I just know that there's something about an earth sign that's going to come up. And I'm coming back around full circle with this message just because when I was reading recently around this United States election, that did come up. That same person. I'm like, why is this a pattern? I always pay attention to patterns. So whatever that means going forward and into the future, we'll see how the chips fall where they fall. But remember, I told you guys that it's an earth sign male, older gentleman, maybe about 43, 44, 45 and up. Okay. Now, RFK is a Capricorn. DeSantis is a Capricorn. Obviously, my co-host here was talking about we have Trump sons. There's two Capricorns. Something is going to happen. Like somebody could maybe break into a home or something odd, maybe on their travels. Just something weird could just come up with it. Okay. But I can't figure it out because I don't know who it is. And I was asking, is this RFK? And I couldn't get quite the answer that was clear enough for me to understand who this was. It was making my brain fry. But I do feel like the fact that Spirit brought it up twice, they're not dropping it. So something hasn't happened, quote unquote, yet to this person. Okay. But this is still up for discussion. We have to see again what the future holds, but pay attention to someone with those signs. Capricorn, Virgo, or Taurus. Someone in the limelight, someone that's politically affiliated, could even be running for the race, for the election. I don't know. But just very odd and it just seemed like it was a pattern that kept coming up. So I wanted to come back around full circle and discuss it with you guys today. But I also saw in a vision as I was shuffling and I pull a little tarot as I do some mediumship as well, besides looking at astrology. And what I saw shocked me because Spirit says we have a surprise coming, like something could just come up. Okay, what's the surprise? I had seen a funeral. I had a vision of a funeral. And that really bothered me because I kind of don't, nobody wants to have bad news. But it was something that crossed my visions a few times where I was seeing like a funeral and it looked like someone passed. And it felt like it was either, you know, like soon. It felt like it could be anywhere between now and election time or shortly after. Like something could come up. And I had this feeling that someone could pass. Now, Biden is really old. I had seen some scorpionic stuff there. But it's also the death card in traditional tarot. So it had me thinking, well, maybe it's Biden. Maybe Biden, gets really sick and just sadly passes. I don't know. But I just found it interesting of the timing of that or just something that could come up like near the elections that was something so tragic. Now, am I saying it's going to be Trump? Am I saying it's going, I don't know. I'm not saying that. This is for entertainment purposes only, but this is just something that came up on my psychic radar is we may see a funeral. I know that there's been some assassination attempts on Donald Trump. I think it's been 3 in total. I had predicted that there may be one coming up in September and then it happened. Didn't I predict that? We did a recording on that, right?
Yes, you did. Yeah, you
And then it
did.
happened and everyone's like, you said that it would happen. And I knew that they would continue to try. But I have to be honest with you guys, when I was doing this reading, I was shuffling and looking around. I couldn't, honestly, it's not so much Trump is the threat. It looks like they're more afraid of RFK. Isn't that something? I
Definitely
mean,
pretty wild.
but they have to move Trump out of the way somehow. So if they can't, it's like because I saw they were more afraid of him. And here's what's interesting. If you think of what RFK has been speaking about, for those of you that have been following him, whether you love him or hate him or don't even care, okay? Here's the thing. RFK is very vocal about the food and what they're putting in it and how it's being poisoned. He's very vocal about trying to um, change the laws so we don't have to be so sick, right? Because of the food we're eating, including our children. Very, like, very vigilant and very well spoken about um, the vaccine cards for children. He's been talking very openly about this. Um, he gets into some really deep subjects on this stuff, and it's actually very eye-opening, and very brave of him, considering that um, so many people freak out if you mention even the word vaccine. People can't even type the word vaccine on Instagram without, like, their Instagram getting flagged or something. It's like you have to use the secret coding and stuff. It's just a pain in the butt because it's happened to me before. But you can't, and people that have been talking about healthy food, like I have clients that are very holistic and they try to push stuff or talk about stuff on their Instagram. Have you tried this? Or, drink this when you have a cold, and they try to shadow ban them. That's pretty awful. So he's also spoken openly about the censorship, which, mind you, I am a big advocate for. I want my freedom of speech. It's very important to me. And it was kind of nice finally hearing somebody say something out loud about it. Um, and, kind of saying, hey, this isn't right. And so certain things, my spirits stay quiet about when they listen to him talk. When I'm listening to a politician speak, spirit will be right in my ear telling me something. They'll say lies, or they just give me the tea in my ear. I have not really heard my spirits say too much about this individual. Usually they're bitching and complaining and talking all kinds of craziness that I ain't going to share. I will keep those those things to myself. But but they are they're the truth tellers. So it's like I just, I have to bite my tongue sometimes not to say certain things. There's a way to say things. But I haven't really heard too much, like, complaining about that particular individual. Okay? And that is coming straight from my spirits. Usually they're pretty vocal, but they were actually saying he genuinely wants to fix some things. So that's what I got from my spirits. Um, but I will have to say, just looking at all the charts of these individuals' natal charts, there's a lot of tense energy. I feel like Trump has to really take care and watch his health. Same with Biden. Health came up with both of them, just looking around at their charts and stuff like that. Also, we had this full moon in Aries that just happened, and that full moon in Aries was like, if you look at the birth date of the United States, and those that are interested in astrocartography, you could see that Aries full moon was going right over Washington D.C., the Carolinas, and New York. I was like, holy God! And it was moving through the politicians' energy as well, those that are running. So this is going to be a pretty heated, pretty, it's just looking pretty terrible. But it has to get, I say terrible meaning like it's not it's intense, it's going to be one hell of a fight. Again, it's like this energy of, like, it's like Pluto's mood is like, let's finish him. Finish who? I don't know. Whatever is corrupt and whatever isn't fair and whatever is dark, it's the finish him moment. It's like the tower moment. So if someone is supporting um these type of gatekeepers and you know broken corrupt systems, if you're supporting this and it's hurting people, it's hurting humanity, then those things are naturally going to fall away. It's just law. It's just like the law of the universe. I mean, what the hell do you expect? So but it's not going to go down without a fight. So we'll see how this goes. Is it going to be this person? Is going to be that person? I also want to bring up, I was interviewed many years ago by the Spiritual Spiral Show. Her name is Sam Davison. And I bring this up because I actually think there's an episode coming out, I think, very soon. She interviewed me again and actually brought this up. So I had mentioned on a live reading that we may be seeing a female president. That could be possible. I didn't say it was going to happen. I said it could be possible. Okay. I mentioned this and I pulled the card of a Libra, which is, how do you pronounce it? Is it Kamala or Kamala? I don't know.
Kamala, I believe.
I know certain people say it different ways.
I know.
I just I I'm trying to figure out, like, I know I hear people saying it different ways and I'm like, how do you actually say her name? Okay. You guys, you have to forgive me. I don't really pay attention to the news because most of it's lies. I like to listen to podcasts. Okay. So going back to her, in the live I had stated and I had said, and which, mind you, this came up in the interview recently. She said, you had said that we may be seeing a female president. I said, that is correct. I did. And I pulled the Libra card, or the Justice card in traditional tarot, and she is a Libra. So this is going to be very close. This could be very close because if my spirits mentioned it, I believe that that could be very possible. And look what's happening now. Like, no one would ever think it would come down to this, right? We would never think that Biden would disappear and, like, where the hell did he go? Is he sick? Is he dead? Like, so many people were messaging me, is he dead? What happened to him, right? So, and some of you are, I know, are listening right now. They're like, is he dead? Anyway, um, this is all pretty much possibilities of what could happen, but you have to trust in the universal law, because Pluto, thank God for Pluto coming in and just trying to reconstruct and destroy and burn to the ground what is no longer serving us. It is time. Like, this is the last moment. And it's not only a last moment for us in our personal worlds, we cannot go back anymore, you guys. We cannot go back to the same way of living. It's not working. Something has got to change. So I'd like you guys to just sit for a moment and think about how your bank account looked many years ago, right? Were things better or were they worse? What has changed? Like, really carefully assess using this Jupiter and Gemini energy and transit to get different perspectives. Again, this is not a time to shame, blame, or anything, but actually just carefully assess. Go back to the start. Go back to 2008, even if you want to, because that's when Pluto entered Capricorn, and say, what the hell just happened? What are we doing wrong? You know, who's in charge of all of this? Um, are they who they say they are? I mean, this Jupiter Gemini transit's like, forget what you think you know. But I will say this, as I moved through the reading for the elections, I have a sneaking suspicion that it's possible that Trump might win. However, there may be an argument or a discussion or something put on hold, because I told you that that possibility could be there due to this transit. It's very likely it could happen where it'll say, hey, it's a tie. Well, what do you mean it's a tie? I got so many states on the red team. You got so many states on the blue team. And it's like, there could be a drug out argument because of the integrity behind the vote. Is it accurate? Is it a deceased person's voting ballot? Is it somebody that got washed up, that lost their mail over in, from Hurricane Helen, in Asheville, or someone stealing their ballots and then pretending that, you know what I'm saying? It's like, you just don't know. All things are very possible with corruption involved. You just don't know. And at this point, I wouldn't put it past them, because look what's going on. And when you're in the midst of this type of energy, when people are desperate, they're dangerous. And you just don't know what the hell they're going to do. You don't know what they're going to do. But these things can be very possible. But the looks of it, just kind of looking through, Gemini Donald Trump looks like he's moving through this very, he's got some difficulties, but it's possible he could win. Now, however, I did mention back in, I can't remember what year it was, but I did talk about we may see a female president. But I didn't know what the hell I was saying at the time. And so this got brought up in the interview, and I'm like, I can't believe I just said that. And here we are. And I said that years ago. So it still blew my mind that Spirit just kind of jumped in me and said it on a live camera. Like, I was like, holy smokes, I can't believe I just said that. Who the hell's the Libra? I didn't know who the Libra was at the time. Now we know who the Libra is. So this is going to get interesting. And I want you to know, as I'm talking about these different things, okay, um, please understand that my spirits aren't interested in the blue team or the red team. They don't care, because that is a society thing, that is a human thing, that is an ego based thing. They're looking through the lens of the truth always. So when I'm speaking about different leaders and different people, I'm not favoring this person or I'm not favoring that person. I'm just talking. I have my own personal feelings about things. I keep those to myself. That's not what you're here for. You're here for my spirit's perspective and what they have to say. And that's all that matters here in this session today. So I want you guys to understand that we're looking at a very close race here. We could possibly be potentially seeing a tie or a delay, like something idling, like somebody just out of nowhere just says, oh, we got to do a recount. Keep in mind, what do they call it? Gosh, my co-host was saying something the other day. They pull something at the last minute before like the elections happen. It's like something could just like be made to happen to
What, like
kind of like make their votes better. Like, what is that called?
the October surprise or like that? Is that what you're speaking about?
Yeah, there we go. You said that the other day. You're like, well, they might pull the October surprise. I go, what the hell's the October surprise? What is that? I didn't even know that existed. I'm like, what is that? The
Well,
October
well, they always call
surprise.
it the October surprise when something comes up right before the end of election to kind of swing votes a certain way. They just always called it that. There's just something that happens. I can't remember
Okay, well,
exactly off the top of my head, but
it's such an interesting perspective. I mean, I never even heard of that. But I know, like, I have clients that absolutely love Trump, and I have clients that absolutely hate Trump. I have clients that absolutely love Harris, and I have clients that absolutely hate her. I have clients that are just very opinionated. They call me, and as a matter of fact, I want to share this with you guys that are listening. 50% of my calls in the last 4 months have been about real estate, and they're calling me and asking me in these private sessions, do I buy or do I sell? Because April, what is going to happen with the election? This is like 50% of my calls. People are so scared right now to spend any money, to do anything. They don't know what to do because they're freaking out. And some of them call and they say, well, I hate Trump. And some of them call me and they say, I hate Harris. And then some of them call and they're like, April, I don't give a shit. I'm leaving the country. So it's like I get all this stuff coming through. And I hold space for all of you and I listen very carefully. And I only tell you what Spirit can say. And Spirit is saying and has been saying to these particular clients, because these patterns been coming up, um, that we're going to be seeing a big surge of real estate coming up in 2025. 2025 is a snake year. That means this is a transformation for many of us, transformation in our economy. I call this the Great Reset. We might be seeing a big shift with American dollar. As a matter of fact, I'm going to bring that up too. So I think it was last year in 2023, early of last year, I had mentioned that we need to pay attention to an October month and the economy crashing. We did see a lot of haywire things going on with the banks, and it was in Scorpio season, or it was like right before Scorpio season. I do not think that this October or Scorpio season is exempt from that reset starting to move into the new year of 2025, because 2025 is a snake year. I feel like it's happening now, obviously. Um, so it's like, the middle class is slowly dying away. And with the way the prices are going up with food and stuff, it's almost impossible for people to make it. And it's really sad because this is coming through my phone as well, is we're starting to see a lot of relationships or people sticking together that they're unhappy in because they can't afford not to. So let's just say you're in an abusive relationship and you can't leave because you got two kids and you can't afford to live on your own. That means you got to have two separate households. How are you going to pay for groceries? And I'm getting these phone calls where they know that the husband's cheating on them, but they can't leave because they can't afford it. They need his money. You need two incomes to survive. That's how bad it is. Think about being in that position. Then I got people calling me because they're pissed off because they're the ones that have gone through the steps of getting their and this really bums me out and breaks my heart for some folks, is they're upset because some of these immigrants are coming in and they had to go through the process to get their work visa or their green card and stuff like that. They actually were taking the time and they were in the process of waiting, and then they saw all this stuff going on. And I know that they were devastated because they felt that that was so unfair because they still have to go through the process. Think about those people. These are just different things that are genuinely coming through my phone calls on an everyday basis. And you have to wonder, like, okay, are we going to continue this, or is someone going to like try to fix this or help this? Um, because it's quite a bit of a mess. And so if anything's coming from a place of evil or greed or power hungry, that type of thing, it's going to burn down to the ground. And that's why Pluto's here. Pluto's coming in to save our tails. Okay, so all we can do is just kind of see and wait what happens. um but like I said, I mean, pay attention to twos, ties, twos, things like this. um I pray that I'm wrong about this, but we may see like a funeral, or something could come up in the news that's big. And I say could, and I say possible. So, we'll see how this goes. I had mentioned that Donald Trump needs to be careful with his health, and I had mentioned Donald Trump needs to be careful with just being out and about in general. And there is this feeling of distrust around him because he's like, even the people that are helping him, he's watching them, like thinking, are you in with me? Or are you, like he's wondering if people are switching sides, which is very Jupiter and Gemini energy anyway. That transit, I just cannot believe people did not think about this. Do you know what that transit means? It means two heads are better than one, and you're twinning it to winning it, which means we're going to see a lot of people switching sides. Whose team are you on? Well, I don't know. So, and my son is so cute. Um, I will just gracefully mention this, like in conversation, and he's very young, so he was just like, he hears, because we're getting closer to the election, and he hears family talking about the elections. He hears sometimes once in a while, he hears other children talking about certain people that are running. And my son tells me, Mom, I know that you're going to be doing your elections reading. And I started to think about it and how hard it must be to be an adult to have to make a decision like that. And he goes, because I can honestly see certain things that make sense on one side here and there, tiny little things. And then but then I can honestly see some other things on the other side, but everything's so extreme. He's like, can't you just meet in the middle? And this is coming from a child. And he goes, and it's terrible, Mom, because everybody hates each other. And then you feel uncomfortable because you can't talk about it. Again, this is coming from a child. So it's like, think about that. And one of the things that we have to be very careful with is these gatekeepers. The gatekeepers are, we're starting to see the celebrities fall from the sky. The stars are falling from the sky because we are no longer going to be needing the gatekeepers. The way we look at authoritative figures is over. We're going to start to change the way we look up to people, right? And so in the midst of all this voting, Jupiter in Gemini energy, the Pluto in Capricorn transit moving into Aquarius, this is our moment to really change things. And I know some people have talked about Harris and have said, well, wouldn't it be great to have a female president? This is the greatest thing in the world, right? I've had clients call me and talk about that. I've had clients call me and talk about how they're upset that this particular administration isn't doing anything about what's going on in the Middle East over there and how pissed they are. So there's so many different ways of looking at this. And on the outside looking in, it's like I can hear the voices of all my beautiful clients, and I can understand, I can hear them. And so it's just one hell of a time, but something has got to change, and don't be prepared, and don't be surprised, and be prepared that people might be changing their minds at the last second. And that means even with their vote. That means even with their perspective on an authoritative figure because of these transit. And one of the things that I can say when it comes to astrology is astrology never lies. It's like accurate to the T. It's like beyond belief. So we shall see. Now, who's the winner? Like I said, I have a sneaking suspicion Trump could win, but not without some problems. Because um, if if he wins, there could be some kind of like, or it could be showing up like it's a tie again, something in twos. We're going to be see a big shift here, a big turn of events, something in twos. And again, we got that via combusta, that midpoint section of the zodiac. I'm telling you, that's the start of Scorpio season. That's going to be interesting because we could be seeing a big shift around that time too as well. So I feel like these are all possibilities, but I can say that it's possible that Trump could win. But it's also possible for the tie. It's also possible for recounts and questioning the accuracy. So we'll see how this goes. I know that, the prediction from the past that was brought up in the interview recently about Harris. Well, I didn't know it was her at the time, what the hell I was saying. I was like, we might be seeing a female president. I just blurted it out. I can't believe I said that. So that could happen. But this isn't going to go down without a fight. And keep in mind, once someone gets voted in, we are going to be seeing one hell of a cleanup, and that's in our that's in the administration. Whoever wins, that is in the environments that are going on around us, where we're going to be seeing a lot of fighting going on, like as if like we may be seeing states starting to kind of cluster together, um where it might get to the point where we'll see even states being its own entity at some point, which I had seen in the future that possibility could happen. And I had mentioned this for those that have really been following me for some time. You remember I told you this. I talked about it on the gram quite a bit, where we could see states possibly dismantling themselves from the federal government, and they decide they're going to be their own entity in their own country, and then they get to choose what laws they wanted voted in. So that's what I'm saying. For folks that are listening, um, it would be definitely worth looking around and finding environments that are fit for your values and belief systems. Because if you don't like where you are and you don't like things that are being voted in, they're sneaking these laws in. And you got to be careful with that, because you could wake up one day and all of a sudden there's a law that you can't like drive past 15 miles somewhere. And you're like, what the hell just happened? I could have sworn. Um, things like that. And they sneak these laws in. So if you're not paying attention, you could be in the wrong state and you're like, no, I don't agree with this. and then it might be harder to get out of that. So, but this is slowly going to take time. But just pay attention to this type of stuff. So you definitely want to go to where it feels aligned again with belief systems, your values, um, especially for your rights. So if you have a particular thing that you like to do, like some of my clients want their medical rights because they're very into holistic things, and they're not interested in what certain things are being pushed and big pharma, and they're like, oh God, I'm not going down like that. No way. You're going to have to go to states that you can do what you want to do, or leave the country, things like that, which many of my clients have mentioned that they wanted to. So it just really depends. So, like I said, slowly start to see how things are going and just decide, is this where I want to stay? Do I agree with these laws? Because things can only get harder. If you don't like it, of course. If you want to go along with it, then go along with it. But you have to start thinking. You have to start thinking about that going forward, and that's something that I got to thinking about with time. And that's why I've made some. I started planning a little bit ahead for my future as well, because there's just certain things. I'm a mother, and there's just certain things I do and do not like. Um, And so I think we all need to be thinking that on a collective. And I think many people are, but some people aren't quite thinking that far ahead. But if you are listening to this and you are thinking of your families and thinking a little bit ahead, just remember I told you this. Please find a place or environment that is applicable to your needs, belief systems, and values, and move in that direction, because you just don't know where these things are going to go. And like I said, like all the traffic that's been happening with all these phone calls in the last 4 months or so, it's like people are scared. They don't know if they should sell their house or buy or what to do, because they don't know if they're going to be out of a job with this economy. They don't know what's going on. They're scared. And we're going to be seeing a lot of people dumping their houses, selling really quickly leading into 2025. We might see percentage rates dropping potentially. I saw that going on depending on who. I mean, I think that's going to happen regardless who gets voted in. Like, we might see some adjustments there. Um, but something's got to give, because people can't afford to even like rent anymore. It's really, really tough. So, and sustaining yourself is absolutely impossible. And at some point, it's like we have to find the balance of things, and thank God for that Pluto energy coming in to kind of shake things up. That will be the tower moment. That will be the finish him or her moment, whatever that means. But I put this in God's hands and have faith that, we're going to have to get through this regardless. And we'll see how this goes. But that's what I got for this elections for 2024. I can't think of anything else. Let me ask my co-host. Is there anything else I need to get into?
I can't think of anything. You pretty much covered everything.
Um, I know some people were talking about how there might be a war or something that could break out right before the elections. I know that was mentioned a few times.
Worried about civil war or
No,
a world war?
yeah, clients were worried that a world war could break out before the elections, which would give an excuse for the elections to be delayed, because I felt like there could be a delay or a tie. I thought, well, I really pray that won't happen. But if anything, something could come up with Biden, and then naturally, let's just say something happens with Biden. Naturally, Kamala would just take the role until that particular day, but there's not a lot of time. So, I mean, I don't know. So it's, um, but nothing surprises me at this point. After everything I've seen so far, it's like you turn on the news, you're scrolling through Instagram, and you're just like, what now? Jesus, like the state of this country, this place needs an exorcism. Literally, it's too much. Um, and that's all I'm praying for, is like, let's just get the dark ones out, behind the scenes that are abracadabraing all this, so we can get a little bit more grounding here, so our kids can have a really good future. And we'll see how this goes. we'll see who wins. But this is what I got so far. Anyway, guys, thank you for listening. That's what I got for the elections. You know where to find me. I'm always on Instagram. If you'd like to book a reading with me, you know where to find me at austriasundance.net. Thank you.